Hello, I'm Captain Phoenix and welcome to my corner. In this video I'll show you the George Michael Older album from 1996, which has just arrived here and has been released recently. It's arrived in two different versions. I'm going to present those, the music in it, a little about the making of the album, the background to it, and tell you what I think about it. So hang on. When the album Older was released in 1996, it was almost 6 years since George Michael's previous album. It was this one, Listen Without Prejudge, Volume 1 it's called. There was never a Volume 2. And at that time in 1990, George Michael looked like this, very much like he did in the Wham days. But 6 years passed since this one, and a lot of things happened in George Michael's life. One of the most important things was that he met Anselmo Felipe, who became his lover, his I think fiancé. They were not probably they were not really married, but they were partners from 1990. Where George Michael spotted him in the audience at a concert in Brazil. Anselmo was Brazilian, and he spotted him in the audience and thought he saw something special and tried to forget it again. But Anselmo kept popping up the next weeks around George Michael, and they started a relationship. That was back in 1990. I think maybe 91, beginning of 91. Yeah, it was. And but rather shortly after that, Anselmo was got ill, and he was tested for HIV, and he was positive. So at that time, you couldn't cure that, I guess. So the prospects of their relationship and the rest of his life was with a limit, and yeah, and just less than 2 years after that, he died during a blood transfusion in Brazil. But he was the partner of George Michael in that time, and a very important person in his life, of course. George Michael has described it as it was the first time that he really felt he received and he gave love without thinking of getting anything back, and it was both ways. So that was a very important period and a very important time in George Michael's life, and it actually also was what started him making this album. So yeah, and what have been released is in two formats. This one, a 2 LP set. This is from, as I said, 96. Back in the days where vinyl was almost dead, the original release was a single disc, and there's almost an hour of music on it, so the quality was never good. It was pressed together. Now it's released in a proper way. It's a two LP set, and yeah, here you see it. And there's a box, a special limited box. I don't know how limited it is, but there's a box set released also, which arrives in this white format here. And if we open it, it shouldn't be an unboxing video, but yeah, a little it is. See here, a sentence from Jesus to a Child, which was the one of the songs, of course, at the album. And what we find in here is the same 2 LP as on the separate release. This one here, 2 LPs, and an extra LP with some it's called Upper, with some other mixes and yeah, other mixes and a few other songs that are not on the older album. Then there's a 5 CD, as you can see here, 5 CDs, older, upper mixes. The first 2 of them are the same as on vinyl, and there's other a lot of different radio mixes and instrumental mixes and different things yeah. So that is on the CDs, and then there's a booklet, a wonderful booklet, and very high quality, very good aesthetics. See here the images are very good. So yeah, and the story about the album and the recording, how they worked. There are interviews with a lot of the studio musicians, the producers, sentences from George Michael himself. Yeah, so there's a lot of good information, good reading in that one. And then there's three images. You can see them, I think, in the background up there. As I mentioned, George Michael met Anselmo Filippa in '91, and they were together until he died in 1993, in the end of '93. And that was a big tragedy for George Michael. He stopped touring in the last for some time, and he stopped making records. He stopped recording for several years. But what came out of that period was a beautiful song. The first, the one on this album, "Jesus to a Child." It's a song to Anselmo Filippa, and at that time he had not gone public with that he was gay, but there are many hints on the album about that. So it's his farewell and his thanks to the first person that he really felt he loved in his adult life. He was 27 when they met and had only 2 years together. So "Jesus to a Child" was the first one, I think, the first one of the songs recorded, and in that period. George Michael has also separated from Sony Records and started got free of his contract with them. I think he was contracted to make 8 albums, and he was not very productive in that sense. So it was a relief for him as well to get out of that contract. He performed the song "Jesus to a Child" at a live show in Berlin, and you can read in the booklet here that how the representatives of Sony was there in the front row and listened to that and heard what they had just lost. So their jaws had dropped. It's written as that. Then there was a long period when he recorded it, and the story about that is told very well in this book. Also the way that George Michael worked, it's described like a puzzle. He had the picture of what he wanted all the time in his head, but he laid it down bit by bit, and in the end, and a lot of work went into a lot of the songs here. Funny enough, "Jesus to a Child" was made in only 2 weeks, but some of the other ones, "Fast Love" was made in several versions and over a long period of time. I think almost a year from the very beginning to the final version of the song was there. So yeah. The booklet also describes the videos, some of the videos that were made, and was an important part of the release of the music. Here we see the shower from I think it's from "Fast Love" with George Michael in the studio in the shower, and yeah, he was very concerned about all the details and was very precise of what he wanted. One of the producers said, "I come up with 8 to 10 ideas," and he would normally choose one of them and then dump the rest. And then he could come back with another 10 suggestions, and then he would maybe pick one. And so it was a long process, and you can hear that in the music, the perfection. There's so many small details, instrument, voices, rhythms that goes on. So it's a very well-produced album here. A lot of details. It is made, of course, digitally. It is in the 90s, so it's digital material, and now we have it on vinyl. But I think the vinyl sounds good. At a couple of the tunes, and that goes for the CD versions as well. The very upper treble is very forward. It's very at a very high level. It's not that it is making ear fatigue, but it's you can say it's a little bit, I would say, pointed or sharp in the sound in some places. But the sound is in general very good on the records. That goes for both for the older the album here and the extra material. That's a single disc we have here in these inners. They are not polylined, but interesting images as well. So it's okay. It's really it's more than okay. The sound is good. I think maybe as good as it can be from a digital source from the 90s. So there's a lot of good music to be taken out of here. I don't know where the records are pressed. I was a little unlucky with my set here. One of the records is very warped. Yeah, that's a bit strange because this box set it's not cheap as you can remember. It's limited, so they have to. I thought that their quality control was better, but I'll have one of the records changed. It plays, but it's very bumpy, as you can see. I'll put a little video of that here. So, do you need the box set? Well, if you're really a hardcore George Michael aficionado, a fan, of course you'll need it. I've loved older all the time. I've had it from it came out on the CD. I've listened very much to that when I worked, when I drove in my car, and just listening to it. It's the lyrics are very different, but there's a lot about sorrow, about losing, of course, his lover. Yeah, so I think the lyrics are good. The rhythm, the instrumentation is fantastic. He puts in so many layers of rhythm in his music, so it's just I don't get tired of listening to it, and that's a good thing since it's from the middle of the end of the 90s. So I can really recommend it. Be sure you get a flat record or two flat records. I think most people would be happy with this one. The booklet is I think probably the most interesting thing in the box set. There are really some good stories in here and good images as well. So yeah, I think they did right to release it. The secondary market for the original vinyl is just crazy. The sound was never good, and the prices had been up there. Now you can get the 2LP version for a very fair price, and I can recommend it. So thank you for listening and watching here. I hope you, if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. That'll help my channel to grow. And thanks for your time. See you on the next video. Bye bye.